chapter 42. My darling Michelle, just as I told you then, I tell you now again. You will always have my love. We patterned our love for each other on God's love for us. And His love is eternal, so my love is too. Now, one powerful demonstration of love that reminds me a lot of the type of love that Jesus has for us was made by a man named David Rice, pastor at Community Harvest Tabernacle in Calvin, Kentucky, and two of his three daughters, Sherry and Rebecca. Community Harvest Tabernacle was Michelle's home church, and Pastor Rice her pastor for most of her life. Now, Calvin is not a large city, so it's a close-knit community church, and Michelle grew up with Sherry and Rebecca and their sister, Melissa. Melissa lives in Tennessee now, or I don't doubt that she would have come too when Pastor Rice and Sherry and Rebecca came by our house several days before Michelle passed. They had just gotten word that Michelle was dying, and they immediately dropped everything and came to pray with her and with us. I'd only met them once before, but they, of course, knew the girls well. So, Lexington is over 2.5 hours away from where they live, and Pastor Rice is healthy, but he's in his 70s. And it must have been 6 or 7 p.m. Before they made it to our house. And that's still a few hours before dark in June, but late enough that I was worried about them driving back late in the evening. But Pastor Rice has such a calm, gentle, powerful, and the Lord nature to him that assured me they'd be just okay. They'd be just fine. And when he led us in prayer, Michelle raised her hand and said, "Hallelujah." And she recognized that voice and the authority behind it because it was authentic. So the girls sat with Michelle and our girls, and Pastor Rice sat with me in the kitchen. And he was in no hurry whatsoever. And he tended to me like I was one of his own flock. And we talked about a good many things, and I learned that he had been good friends with Dan Lamar. And Dan must have been a good bit senior to Pastor David because Dan fought in the Second Great War, which shouldn't have come as a shock to me given Dan's age, but for some reason it did. I guess I'd only known of Dan as the gentle Christian that he became, and it just never occurred to me that he was, of course, a soldier before that, like most men of his age from that time period. Thinking of Dan as the gentle Christian he became, it made me kind of reluctant to tell Pastor David about Dan giving me that pistol in my dream. But as we talked, I learned that Dan saw some hard fighting in the war. Once during some particularly tough door-to-door urban combat, Dan was clearing the house, and right after clearing the main room, he looked back through the same door he had just busted down for his entry. And there were 3 German soldiers, and one of them had already thrown a potato masher grenade at him. It was in the air. And they have a 4.5 second fuse, and most of those seconds were already gone. And he saw it coming at him in slow motion. There's no time to react. It just happened too fast. He looked over and it's in the air at it, coming at him. 3 soldiers right there. Somehow, the trajectory and the speed of the grenade made it clip the door mantle just right, and it ricocheted back and killed the 3 Germans instead of Dan. And at that moment, something changed inside of Dan. He felt the hand of God on him. And he knew at that moment that if he made it back home, it was only because God had taken mercy on him and listened to somebody's prayers from back home. Now, you don't do that type of fighting without a lot of near-death experiences. That was some tough fighting that they did over there, man. Incredible, just amazing. Unfathomable, some of what they went through. So they had a lot of near-death experiences. But when you know God's involved, you know it. Now, if you felt this for yourself, you understand this completely. And if you haven't, there is no point in me trying to describe it because I can't. But it's real. And Dan felt it. And when he came home from the war, he devoted his life to Christ. Now, Pastor David and I talked long into the evening. And I gave him many opportunities to bail out gracefully. And he politely ignored me each and every time. Sometime after 10:30 p.m., when my spirit and everybody else's spirit was calm, and our tanks were topped off, Grace, Pastor David and his girls, they prayed with us again before heading home. And this time I spoke to him, and I asked God to bless Pastor Rice and his family every day, but especially tonight on their long journey home. I asked them to let us know when they made it back safely, and they did. And it was well after midnight when they finally got back home. And I'll never forget the powerful statement of love they made to me and Michelle and the girls just by simply and firmly committing to be shepherds